When faced with two fractions that we're adding and subtracting that are somewhat alike and difficult to operate with, we look for common multiples, which was covered in our adding and subtracting unlike fractions clip. This is a short clip just explaining why is it that we look for common multiples, because understanding this will help us understand the whole process. So we're going to just look at a previous example in that clip of adding and subtracting unlike fractions. And the example was 1/6 plus 1/4. So what we did is we found the multiples of 6 and we found the multiples of 4 and we looked for the lowest common multiple, and that was 12. Now, why is it that we're doing this? Well, let's explain what these multiples actually mean. So the multiples of 6, 12, 18, 24 are actually showing us what we can cut up our sixths into if we make multiple cuts. So if we make just one cut, or essentially we're making no extra cuts. So if we keep everything just as one, as is, then we'll have 6 pieces or sixths. If we cut everything into 2 pieces, so that's where a multiple, the second multiple comes from, then they'll all become twelfths. So if each piece gets cut twice. If we cut each piece 3 times, then each piece will become 18ths, because it would have 3 of each, and 6 groups of 3 is 18, and so on and so on. So that's what these multiples are representing, the different fraction types that we can convert by cutting smaller and smaller for our sixths. Same with the quarters, the same idea. If we keep each piece as 1, the first multiple of 4, then they'll stay as fourths. If we cut them all into 2, then the second multiple of 8 would match what we'd end up with. We'd end up with eighths. If we cut each piece into 3, then we'd end up with twelfths, and so on and so on and so on. So this is what the multiples actually are showing us and why we're looking at the multiples of these numbers. So then we just make sure that we find one that will match, so that we can then start cutting our shapes up so that our fractions match, so that we can add, following our golden rule that they must be the same fraction type to successfully add or subtract. And of course we went through those steps of cutting up our quarters into 3s as shown on the screen, and the reason being it's the third multiple along, so it requires 3 cuts for us to make it into twelfths. And the same when we looked at the sixths, we cut that each into 2 pieces because it's the second multiple along. And so that successfully changed both of our fractions into equivalent fractions of twelfths, and that's how we ended up with 2 twelfths plus 3 twelfths equals 5 twelfths, which of course is our answer to 1/6 plus 1/4.